Thank you, Barthmere, and welcome to you all, Mittenda, to this conference about the wonderful world of brass bands, in particular with reference to our own homeland of Cornwall. So I'll make a start on the day. We have some very eminent speakers who are extremely experienced, with a lifetime's experience of brass bands in Cornwall. But really what we need to do first is perhaps explain to you, if you don't know, exactly where brass bands came from. Because they didn't happen overnight. They evolved slowly over many years. Nobody suddenly shouted, "Eureka! I've invented a brass band." Brass bands as we know them now really came about in the Victorian era and developed their now familiar form in a roughly 25-year period between 1850 and 1875. To find their roots, we have to go back perhaps as far as the 15th century, when many cities and towns employed night watchmen, who made their presence known by blowing horns and reed instruments of various sorts, piping or drumming. They were known as waits, spelled W-A-I-T-S, and also assisted at fairs, weddings and other social functions, and played when gentry or royalty visited the town. The life for a working man was hard and dull, working for at least 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for a pittance, often with his wife and children alongside, to earn an extra few coppers. He was glad of any release from the terrible working conditions in crowded, ill-ventilated, noisy factories, mills and mines. Thousands of men, ill-educated, barely able to read and write, discovered that they had an aptitude for music. Within a few months of taking up a brass instrument, they could play in a band, and more important for themselves, could be somebody and achieve something on their own. Thus the great industrial and mining areas of Cornwall, Yorkshire, South Wales, Durham and Manchester became great centres of music making, particularly of brass bands. This great upsurge was helped by two important factors. Firstly, the mill, mine and factory owners encouraged the formation of bands amongst their workers. As well as being good publicity for their companies, it kept the workers busy during the few hours that they weren't actually working. In particular, so they didn't waste any time getting involved in trade unions. And by 1895, it was estimated there were around 40,000 brass bands in the United Kingdom. This compares to about the 2,000 or so it's estimated we have today. One point that should be made is that early brass bands were all male. Even until after the Second World War, it was rare to find a lady playing in a band. However, in 1956, a young lady called Hazel Jull caused quite a sensation in the national press by being the only lady to play in the Royal Albert Hall at the National Brass Band Championships that year as a member of the Falmouth Town Band. Well, we know that lady as Hazel Bennett, who is the Gorsedh Horner, and she's with us here today. So later on you can read all about her illustrious career in brass bands. There's a little report there from the British Bandsman all about Hazel, who blazed the trail for ladies in brass bands.
Mittenda, Brian Minear OB. Good morning. As Philip said, I'm Brian Minear, and Scudair Avandi's Breast is my bardic name, which means brass band enthusiast, which indeed I am. And it shows an angel trombonist, which confirms that in 1516, 500 years ago, trombones were actually in existence. Now, if I put it to about there, likewise. So notice I've used 7 different positions to get 7 different notes. So that's nice deep sound. And the two B-flat tubas are even deeper in sound than that.
The initial start but they were not brass bands. So my area of research has covered 1845, and I said I've had enough by the time I reached 1945. 100 years. Only brass bands. Did you know, by the way, any reporters in here, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm going to say this. A couple of months ago I read in one of the local papers about the visit of the Royal Marines brass band to the West Country. There's no such animal. Distin was the UK representative of the Adolf Sachs Company. And yes, astonished the music world by appearing at the Great Exhibition, 1851. And as Philip said, they wandered around the country, and they came to Penzance in 1851. I've got the writing. Interesting. I'll tell you why. I'm going to quote, excuse me, I'll have to come down to this one eventually. First of all, there was the adverts in the papers. They told of a Mr. Distin and his sons and his wife, who will perform on their improved silver sax horns, also on their newly invented, remember this phrase, newly invented euphonic horns. The newspaper reported the actual concert they gave. Excuse me while I read and quote. These are the words. The sax horns are most magnificent instruments, giving tones soft as a flute, down to the deepest, the deepest bass notes. And the skill with which these tones are produced was most wonderful. This was written in 1851.
Struggle to get the young players or young singers. Bands seem to have no problems. Our brass bands these days are made up of youngsters, which is a great sign for the future. So, despite the downsides, there's a lot of hope for the organisation of brass banding in this country. St Agnes Silver Band. Now they're really sounding good there, but there is a reason, that's Brighouse and Rastrick. Sorry, but at least we haven't got Terry Wood. We've been playing the floor dance in St Agnes for 60 years, and I'll endorse everything John says about the Glimmin floor dance, because you play it over and over again, and the same thing happened there back. Everybody wanted to play the tune, so we all started playing the melody until our conductor said, "This isn't on," so he actually rewrote it for us, as John did, and we stuck to it. And this year they were Bugle first section champions, so you know, in their own right, they're an excellent band. But you'll see there the average age of that band, very young. And it's all down to this guy as far as the youth band and the B band is concerned. This is the man that's taken them there, the man you made a bard a few weeks ago. Alan Pope, appointed in 1999, in just 11 years, he's achieved a tremendous amount with those two.